My girlfriend got drunk, lost control outside the hotel bathroom and blamed me, so I stayed silent until we landed and my next action left her shut up. The Europe trip was largely my financial undertaking, though my girlfriend chipped in for a few hotel nights and some dinners during our travels. I had envisioned this journey as a grand celebration, a fusion of my birthday and Valentine's Day, a romantic escapade across vibrant cities. Yet, the dream unraveled in Madrid when I uncovered her infidelity, a revelation that emerged from a chaotic night steeped in alcohol and escalating tensions. The evening began in a lively bar where we were engrossed in watching the Super Bowl. At halftime, the establishment abruptly closed, and a spirited employee leapt onto a chair, rallying the crowd to follow him to another venue under the same ownership, where the game would continue. The prospect of chasing the game across town didn't appeal to us, so we opted to retreat to our hotel, intending to stream the rest on my phone, curled up in bed. As we were ushered out, my girlfriend announced an urgent need for a restroom. I pointed out that the bar likely wouldn't allow her to use theirs now that it was closing and suggested she hold it for the 5-minute walk to our hotel. She nodded, urging haste, and I set off at a brisk pace, weaving through the bustling Madrid streets toward our sanctuary. The city was alive with the hum of nightlife, neon signs casting a kaleidoscope of colors on the cobblestones as I led the way, my girlfriend trailing behind. She had borrowed my phone to watch the Super Bowl halftime show, her attention glued to the screen, her steps slowing as she became engrossed in the performance. Her distraction cost us a green light at a busy intersection, forcing us to pause as cars streamed past, my impatience mounting with each passing second. I glanced back, urging her to keep up, but her eyes remained fixed on the glowing screen, oblivious to the urgency. The delay felt like an eternity, each moment stretching my nerves thinner. By the time we reached our hotel, the tension between us was palpable. In the elevator, she grew frantic, clutching herself and muttering that she couldn't hold it much longer. The moment the door slid open, she sprinted down the hall, slamming the bathroom door behind her with such force that it echoed through the quiet hotel at 3 a.m. A loud crash followed. She had stumbled over the toilet in her haste, and, as I later learned, she didn't make it in time, slightly soiling herself. The incident ignited my frustration. I stood in the hallway, shaking my head in silent disappointment, my patience worn thin by the night's chaos. She emerged from the bathroom, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger, and immediately turned on me. She accused me of forcing her to rush back to the hotel, insisting the mishap was my fault. Her voice, slurred from the night's drinks, rose sharply, and our argument erupted, each word a spark in an already volatile situation. The commotion drew the hotel receptionist, who climbed the stairs to our floor and politely but firmly asked us to lower our voices out of respect for other guests. To add to the mess, she had spilled her drink across the hallway carpet in her frantic dash to the bathroom. Mortified, I apologized to the receptionist and grabbed a towel to clean the sticky residue, my hands moving mechanically as my mind churned with irritation. Returning to our room, I found her seething, her drunken rage undiminished. She hurled insults, calling me an a-hole and doubling down on her claim that I was to blame for her humiliation. I tried to reason with her, explaining that the bar had forced us out and that her dawdling with my phone had slowed us down, but the argument spiraled, each of us digging in stubbornly. The back and forth felt endless, her accusations growing more heated with every exchange. For the sake of salvaging the trip, I swallowed my pride and accepted the blame, hoping to diffuse the tension. Exhausted, I watched as she stormed out of the room, declaring she needed to call her mom. She's always shared everything with her mother, from trivial details to the intricacies of our relationship's ups and downs, and I knew this incident would be no exception. I called after her, urging her to stay, and after a moment's hesitation, she returned, her anger still smoldering. She flopped onto the bed, pulled out her phone, and began streaming the Super Bowl, her eyes fixed on the screen as if I no longer existed. The game's commentary filled the room, a stark contrast to the silence between us. She watched until the alcohol overtook her, and she passed out, her phone slipping from her hand onto the sheets. I stood there, staring at her sleeping form, the weight of the night pressing down on me. The argument had left me raw, but it was more than just the fight. Something about her behavior, the way she deflected blame, the casual dismissal of my feelings, gnawed at me. I retreated to the bathroom to shower, the hot water doing little to wash away the unease that clung to me. As I prepared for bed, my eyes fell on her phone, still unlocked, glowing faintly in the dim room. I'd never been one to invade her privacy, but a nagging curiosity pulled at me. What had she told her mom about our fight? Had she painted me as the villain once again? I hesitated, my conscience wrestling with the impulse, but I picked up the phone and opened her messages. What I found was far worse than I'd expected. In a text to her mom, she wrote, "I'm breaking up with him after the trip." My heart sank as I read on. She called me boring, claimed her ex-boyfriend from years ago was better, and mentioned another man, an old coworker I'd met. She had always insisted they were just friends, despite still working for the same company at different locations. My hands trembled as I scrolled through her messages with this coworker. Most were mundane, centered on work, but then I found a series of texts where she invited him to her place. Some messages were suspiciously absent, as if deleted, or they had spoken by phone, leaving gaps I couldn't fill. I couldn't confirm physical infidelity, but the implications were crushing. Her words to her mom about him being better for her, combined with the invitations, painted a damning picture. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen, my mind racing. The betrayal cut deeper than the argument, deeper than the spilled drink or the missed green light. It was a calculated plan to use me, to enjoy the trip I'd largely funded, and then discard me. The next day, I noticed she had deleted the messages with her mom. She showed me a photo she'd sent her, briefly revealing her message thread, and I saw the gap where our fight had been discussed. Her secrecy only confirmed my suspicions. Worse, she had told her mom she'd let me keep paying for everything, a detail that twisted the knife further. I decided to keep my discovery to myself. With 1 week left on our trip, I plastered on a facade of normalcy, smiling through the pain as we continued our journey. But I subtly shifted the financial burden, encouraging her to cover more expenses, meals, activities, whatever I could nudge her toward. Each time she paid, I felt a small, bitter satisfaction, knowing she was unwittingly funding her own downfall. My plan took shape. I'd let her believe everything was fine, let her spend her money, and savor the rest of the trip's sights and sounds. But once we were back home, I'd end it. The thought of her smug confidence, thinking she could use me and walk away unscathed, fueled my resolve. I'd play the part of the oblivious boyfriend, but when the moment came, I'd reclaim my dignity and walk away, leaving her to face the consequences of her betrayal. While she slept, I used the bathroom, showered, and got ready for bed. Her phone lay unlocked on the bed, and out of curiosity, something I'd never done before, I checked her messages to see if she'd told her mom about our fight. What I found was worse, a text to her mom stating, "I'm breaking up with him after the trip." She called me boring, claimed her ex-boyfriend from years ago was better, and mentioned another guy, an old coworker I'd met. She had always insisted they were just friends, though they still work at the same company, just at different locations. I scrolled through her messages with this coworker. Most were work-related, but then I found texts where she invited him to her place. Some messages were missing, or they had called each other, so I couldn't be certain of physical cheating. Still, her words to her mom about him being better and the invitations were damning enough. I said nothing, keeping my discovery secret. We had 1 week left on our trip, so I pretended everything was fine. The next day, I noticed she deleted the messages with her mom when she briefly showed me a picture she sent her. She also told her mom she'd let me keep paying for everything. Now, I'm making her cover more expenses. My plan is to act oblivious, enjoy the trip, let her spend, and break up with her once we're back. Am I wrong? Let's see how the community reacts. One commenter says, "Blunt but not malicious, my tone may be off-putting, but I'm not trying to hurt you. You should break up now. Tell her to find her own accommodation and return home. Either way, it won't be on you." Another chimes in, "Came here to say this. She wants to use you for the rest of the trip and dump you. Dump her now so she can't enjoy the rest of your trip, and don't let her use anything she paid for. Leave, book your own hotel room, don't respond to messages, etc. She can enjoy the rest of her trip solo and pay for everything, not just what you make her pay for." A third adds, "Right on, buddy. Also, please use protection if you sleep with her. I'm sorry you're going through this. I'd be devastated. I'm currently in Barcelona on a Euro trip with my girlfriend for her birthday and Valentine's Day. I'd be heartbroken if I found some crap like that." Talk about halftime drama. She couldn't hold her secrets any better than her bladder, and now she's planning to give you the boot after enjoying the perks you've been paying for. Would it even be worth spending the rest of the trip with someone you know has cheated or is cheating on you? I mean, you don't just invite some guy over and then attempt to delete the evidence. What would you do? Would you stay and pretend all is okay? So much for happily ever after. For our next stop, it's more like, caught you red-handed, now get lost. My 24-year-old female husband, a 25-year-old male, cheated on me, and I don't know what to do. We've been together for nearly 4 years, dating for 1 year, engaged for 1 year, and married for almost 2 years. We've had issues in the past related to his drinking and overindulgence. I'd express my frustration every time he got drunk, but he didn't see the big deal. He transitioned to drinking only on weekends, but even then, it was an issue because he didn't know when to stop. He's the kind of man who never shares his frustrations with me unless he's been drinking. So, whenever he'd get drunk and I'd voice my annoyance, it would spiral into huge arguments about past grievances he'd held on to, things I did that upset him. We've never had trust issues, and I honestly never thought he'd betray me like this. At the close of last summer, my husband and I relocated to a new state, driven by the soaring costs of our previous home that had become unsustainable. Before the move, he shared his curiosity about exploring a different branch of Christianity. Raised in a loosely Christian household, he hadn't been a regular churchgoer until we met. I, on the other hand, grew up steeped in the Pentecostal tradition, attending services faithfully since childhood. Over the past 5 years, his family had gradually embraced Orthodox Christianity, a shift that sparked his interest. In the weeks leading up to our move, I agreed to give his church a chance, but I was clear, if it didn't resonate with me, I wouldn't be coerced into attending. He promised he'd respect my choice, and we left the matter there, focusing on the logistics of uprooting our lives. After settling into our new home, we began attending his Orthodox church. The community welcomed us warmly, their kindness evident in every handshake and smile, but I couldn't shake a sense of disconnection. The rituals and atmosphere felt foreign, not aligning with the vibrant, expressive worship I'd known my whole life. Meanwhile, his drinking, a persistent issue, continued to cast a shadow over our relationship. I confided in him that the church wasn't right for me, and he suggested I speak with a priest to address my reservations. I hesitated, unsure if I'd follow through, and the idea lingered unresolved. Roughly 1 month ago, on a Friday night, I was at work, immersed in the hustle of the service industry. My husband, employed in construction, operates on a schedule that rarely aligns with mine. That evening, he went out to a bar with his brother, cousins, and their friends, all of whom are either married or in committed relationships. Trust had never been a point of contention between us, so I had no reason to question his plans. I returned home around 10 in the evening, exhausted from a long shift, when he called, his voice bright with the buzz of the night, urging me to join them. I declined, my body craving rest, and he assured me he'd be home soon. 2 hours later, he was still out, his calls growing more frequent and incoherent, slurred words betraying his drunken state, laced with confusion and a hint of desperation. He sounded lost, alone in the chaos of the night. I told him to take an Uber home, my patience thinning. He agreed, but in the background, I caught his brother's voice saying, "There you are," so I instructed him to stick with his brother and get home quickly. 2 more hours dragged by, and by 2 in the morning, the bars had shuttered for the night. We share our locations through an app, a habit born of convenience rather than suspicion, so I checked his whereabouts. His icon blinked on my screen, far from home, in the heart of downtown. I texted him, urging him to return, and fell asleep with my phone in hand, the weight of worry settling over me. A call from his brother jolted me awake, he'd lost track of my husband in the crowded streets. My heart raced as I dialed him again, only to hear a woman's laughter in the background, light and carefree, cutting through his slurred greeting of hello. I demanded to know who was with him. He claimed it was just a friend, then backtracked, insisting he was alone, urging me to listen to the silence, a lie so blatant it stung. Furious, I told him to get home within 20 minutes or I'd lock him out. "Okay," he mumbled, his voice thick with alcohol. I watched his location on the app, my eyes glued to the screen as his icon moved erratically, weaving through unfamiliar neighborhoods. It took him an hour to cover a 15-minute distance, his path a disorienting zigzag that made no sense. Life 360 showed his phone at 0% battery, yet he was only 1 minute from home. 20 minutes passed, and he still hadn't appeared. Driven by a mix of fear and frustration, I grabbed my keys and drove to his last known location near a cluster of gas stations. The streets were empty, no parked cars in sight, the neon glow of the stations casting long shadows. I returned home, checking the app again, only to see his location had shifted back down the road he'd already traveled. I set out once more, my heart pounding, until his icon began moving toward me. I turned back, parking at home, and positioned myself at our window, peering through the blinds as a car pulled up in the darkness. The silhouettes inside were unmistakable. He leaned toward the driver's side, their forms merging in what looked like a kiss, lingering for about 1 minute. My breath caught, a cold dread settling in my chest. He switched on the car's dome light, revealing their faces, his flushed and smiling, hers unfamiliar but animated as they talked. The light flicked off, and he leaned in again, kissing her for another minute. Rage surged through me, hot and uncontrollable. I threw on my jacket, my movements sharp and deliberate, and stormed downstairs. Wrenching open the passenger door, I caught them mid-kiss, his drunken gaze meeting mine, his expression unrecognizable beneath the haze of alcohol. "Stay the F away from me," I shouted, my voice trembling with fury. "Don't come inside. We're done." To the woman in the driver's seat, I spat, take him wherever you're going. I turned on my heel, stormed back into the house, and locked every door, my hands shaking as I barricaded myself in the spare room, the weight of betrayal pressing down like a physical force. The clock read 4 in the morning, the world outside silent except for the echo of my racing thoughts. I fumbled with my phone, calling friends, desperate for someone to listen, but no one answered. From the spare room's window, I glimpsed him standing alone in the driveway, the car gone, his figure slumped under the streetlight's dim glow. The sight stirred a fleeting pang of pity, quickly drowned by anger. My mind replayed the night, the laughter in the background, his lies, the silhouettes in the car. Trust, once a cornerstone of our marriage, lay shattered. I thought of our shared history, the promises we'd made, now tainted by his actions. The Orthodox Church, his drinking, our clashing schedules, all these tensions had simmered beneath the surface, but I'd never imagined they'd lead to this. I considered what came next, confronting him, demanding answers, or walking away entirely. The spare room felt like a fortress, shielding me from the chaos he'd brought into our home. As I sat there, the weight of the night settled in, and I knew this moment would redefine everything. My resolve hardened. I wouldn't let his betrayal break me, but I needed time to decide how to move forward, to reclaim my strength in the face of his weakness. It was 4 in the morning. I called friends, but no one answered. Peeking out, I saw him standing alone, the car was gone. Finally, a friend answered, and I sobbed, telling her he cheated. Downstairs, I heard him break in, damaging the door's trim. I grabbed my purse and coat, staying on the phone. As I tried to leave, he asked where I was going. I said, away from you. He insisted we talk, but I refused. When he approached, I told him to back off and asked why he did it. His response, what do you do for me? I laughed in disbelief and walked to my car. He grabbed the door, preventing me from closing it, demanding I go inside. We shouted until I shoved him, giving me time to lock the door. He hit my window and stormed inside. I drove to my friends, who suggested I go to my brother-in-law's, 20 minutes away. My sister-in-law and her husband, my husband's brother, drove up, checked on him, and found him passed out in our living room. Without my input, they brought him to me. The sting of my husband's infidelity lingered like a bruise, his words of explanation only deepening the wound. He claimed he felt alone, burdened by the weight of household chores like cooking and cleaning, which he believed fell squarely on his shoulders. I'll concede that I could step up in those areas. Life's demands often pull me away from domestic tasks, but that's no justification for betraying our vows. His emotional isolation, he admitted, stemmed from his reluctance to share his true feelings unless alcohol loosened his tongue. I'd pleaded with him countless times to communicate openly, to let me in without the crutch of a drink, but my words seemed to vanish into the void. The discovery of his cheating left me reeling, my heart a battlefield of pain and disbelief. Needing space to breathe, I packed a small bag and fled to his cousin's house, seeking solace in the quiet of a guest room. The distance offered a momentary reprieve, a chance to gather my thoughts amidst the wreckage of our marriage. The next day, I returned home, bracing myself for some sign of contrition. Instead, I was greeted by the sight of an empty 12 or 18 pack of beer scattered across the living room floor, a silent testament to his disregard for my trust. My voice trembled with anger as I confronted him, accusing him of shattering my faith in him once again. His response, "I didn't know you were coming home," was so absurd it drew a bitter, disbelieving laugh from my lips. I told him he should be begging for forgiveness, groveling for a chance to make this right. I reminded him of my unwavering loyalty, how I'd turned away advances from other men without a second thought, bound by the commitment we'd made. My fidelity was a point of pride, a testament to the love I'd poured into our marriage, and his betrayal felt like a theft of that devotion. My friends, sensing the depth of my despair, banded together to buy me a plane ticket back to my hometown. I spent a couple of days there, enveloped in the warmth of familiar faces, their support a lifeline as I wrestled with my next steps. The love I still held for him tugged at me, a stubborn thread refusing to snap despite the pain. Against my better judgment, I returned, driven by a hope that we could rebuild what had been broken. I laid out a series of demands, conditions I believed were essential to salvage our marriage. I insisted he stop drinking entirely, a habit that had fueled so many of our conflicts and culminated in his infidelity. To his credit, he's remained sober for nearly 1 month, a small victory that feels fragile. I also urged him to quit nicotine, seek treatment for his undiagnosed ADHD, reinstate his driver's license, lost to a DUI just 2 weeks before our wedding, and agree to attend a church where I might feel more at ease. His Pentecostal upbringing clashed with my preference for a different worship style, and I hoped a change might bridge our spiritual divide. Additionally, he's been delaying a necessary surgery, and I pushed him to prioritize it, tired of his procrastination. He's taken steps, scheduling appointments for most of these demands, but progress is slow, and I find myself constantly reminding him, as if I'm parenting rather than partnering. The role exhausts me, draining the joy from our relationship and casting me as a caretaker rather than an equal. We've enrolled in marriage counseling, set to begin next week, a suggestion he made that sparked a flicker of hope in me. But when I read his intake form, my heart sank. He identified only the trust issues stemming from his infidelity as our problem, ignoring the deeper cracks in our foundation, his drinking, our failure to communicate, the unspoken resentments that fester between us. I'm haunted by the fear that this betrayal could repeat itself, especially if we bring children into the picture, their lives caught in the crossfire of his choices. I worry he'll grow to resent me for pushing him to abandon his preferred Orthodox church, even though he's agreed to switch to save our marriage. The possibility of him slipping back into old habits, reaching for a bottle, shutting me out, or seeking solace elsewhere, looms like a specter, threatening to unravel any progress we make. I neglected to mention earlier that he did offer multiple apologies, though not on the night of his betrayal. It was only when his family brought him to face me, their presence a silent pressure, that he expressed remorse, his words heavy with regret. He was the one who proposed counseling, a gesture that carries weight but feels insufficient against the magnitude of his actions. I'm caught in a tug-of-war between my love for him and the gnawing doubt that he'll never truly change. The community's response cuts through my indecision with brutal clarity. One commenter wrote, "He wasn't even sorry at all. He shifted the blame to you, and you still went back. Why would he change when you returned with zero remorse, zero apology, and zero action on his end? You only have yourself to blame. You should have left and stayed gone," another urged. "Please have respect for yourself and leave. He won't change. Do you want to be cheated on while pregnant, postpartum, or when he wants a younger model? Do you want to worry every time he's out? That's the life you're headed for. Get out now while you're young. You've given enough chances, and he's still in rehearsal mode, practicing excuses and empty promises. Why stay in a rerun of heartbreak when you could write a new script for yourself? Take center stage, embrace your worth, and exit stage left from this sorry excuse for a relationship. The best revenge is living well without him or with someone who treats you right." Their words are a mirror, reflecting the painful truth I've been avoiding. What would I do if I were advising someone else? Have others navigated this kind of betrayal and found peace, or is walking away the only path to healing? I'm left grappling with these questions, my heart and mind at odds, searching for a way forward in the ruins of what we once had.